Our previous video was a huge success, so we decided to bring you the 13 scariest animatronic moments of all time to keep celebrating this spooky season. Drop your suggestions below and let me know. Did you like my Jason costume? Don't take your eyes off the screen to see what the scariest #1 moment is. Before we dive into the animatronic moments, we're going to revisit one of the most terrifying props Disney has ever had. We're revisiting it because for the first time on YouTube, we have an exclusive video of this terrifying prop. We're talking about the Phantom Cruise Line in Disneyland Paris.
Phantom Cruise Line, Disneyland Paris. We've talked about the abandoned Disneyland Paris Mark Twain before, and if you want to check out its story, you can watch this video. But today we're going to focus mainly on two especially creepy aspects of the troubled history of this riverboat. Disney has always been big on their Halloween celebrations, and Disneyland Paris is no exception. So back in 2003 and 2004, they created one of the most chilling experiences there has ever been in the park, the Phantom Cruise Line. During these seasons, the Mark Twain riverboat was turned into the Phantom Cruise Line. Imagineers decided to create a huge and terrifying specter, brought from our worst nightmares, and have it pull the boat across the rivers of the far west. The design alone of this Phantom was terrifying, but seeing it inside the river pulling the boat added a terror factor that people with submechanophobia couldn't handle. It might be terrifying, but it would have been something that we would have loved to experience. But sadly, because of many technical difficulties and even a derailment, which was probably one of the most terrifying things guests have ever seen, the Phantom Cruise Line did not come back in 2005, and it hasn't been seen ever since. Still, it seems like it left a trail of bad luck because the Mark Twain and the Molly Brown have suffered from a few accidents after this. In 2006, the Molly Brown's engine overheated. The smoke damaged the ship and the engines, and it remained out of operation for many months. That left the Mark Twain as the only riverboat in operation. The Molly Brown kept going into and out of refurbishment, while the Mark Twain kept working. Then in 2010, the Molly Brown had to be rebuilt from scratch, so the Mark Twain was the only boat that was operating. But then in 2011, the Mark Twain was used to break ice in the river, and it got stuck. Trying to free the boat, it was pulled, and this caused some damage to the bottom of the boat, and the whole deck was bent. This caused the Mark Twain to go into refurbishment right after the Molly Brown was done. Sadly, this refurbishment didn't come soon enough. The boat was stationed in the dry dock and was left there to rot. Some time passed, and Disney decided to build a kind of barn around the Mark Twain so guests couldn't see the bad condition that the boat was in. The Mark Twain had remained in dry dock, except when the Molly Brown had to go into refurbishment. During these periods of time, the boat is taken out and sometimes covered with a sheet so no one can see the state it's in. It is pretty sad to see how abandoned the boat has become. For a while, there were rumors that said that the Mark Twain was set to return this year, but this never happened. And sadly, in September, the Molly Brown had a small fire and had to be closed temporarily. We can only hope that these two riverboats return to their former glories.
The Molly Brown is still in operation, but the curse on the Mark Twain lingers as it's still abandoned and unrepaired. Maybe this Phantom really did leave a curse, and until the Phantom returns, it will stay that way forever. As you saw, we added never-before-seen footage, and this boat was truly terrifying. What do you think? Up next is a moment from one of the most bizarre and somewhat gross rides to ever exist. We're talking about the Brer Rabbit's Burrow Ride.
The Brer Rabbit's Burrow Ride, located at the Oakwood theme park in Wales. The critical receptions for this ride is not that great, as it is considered one of the worst dark rides in the whole world. Sorry, Brer Rabbit's Burrow Ride.
But unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, the ride closed in 2013, so this bizarre nightmare will only live on in the memories of those who had the displeasure of riding it. Our next contender is one of the rarest and most incredible animatronics ever made. While these movies might be terrible in my opinion, this animatronic is both amazing and terrifying.
Goro, Mortal Kombat movie. Mortal Kombat has been one of the most successful fighting game franchises in video game history. It has over 20 games for different consoles, and it has spawned several comics, novels, animated and live-action TV series, and also animated and live-action films. Mortal Kombat was adapted into two major motion pictures, Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation. The first film came out in 1995, and despite mixed reviews from critics, the film became a financial success and gained a cult following from fans of the series. The film has many of the most famous Mortal Kombat characters, and one of these characters is Goro. To create this half-human, half-dragon character, Tom Woodruff and Alec Gillis from Amalgamated Dynamics were called. They decided that for the sake of time, they would build an animatronic suit that would have the upper arms, head, face, and neck being completely mechanically articulated. The suit weighed about 125 pounds and was worn by none other than Woodruff Jr., of course. To be able to handle the weight, they built a metal brace that went down his spine and to his hips, which displaced some of the weight, but even with that, it was still very heavy, confining, and hot, according to Woodruff. While Woodruff controlled the character's lower hands and legs, the animatronic part of the suit had to be operated by 13 to 16 puppeteers. They did this by feeding the information into a computer, making this the first motion-controlled creature the studio had ever created. But the animatronic frequently broke down, causing significant delays. In the end, the animatronic worked for what was needed and became a very impressive animatronic suit. There were some CGI enhancements to help with his lip sync and stuff, but the rest of it is pure special effects, wizardry, and talent.
This next animatronic is included because of its incredible size. While the design itself isn't terrifying, its sheer size and the fact that it roams freely earn it a spot on this list. We're talking about Fanny the Fire-Breathing Dragon.
Fanny holds the Guinness World Record for largest mobile animatronic in the world. This giant robot dragon was designed by Electronic AG and is powered by 4 remote controls, a 2-liter turbo diesel engine, and a series of hydraulic valves. It was created as part of the Tridino project, to be able to participate in the Spearing the Dragon tradition that has taken place in the German town for the past 500 years. The dragon is made up of 2 hydraulic circuits, consisting of 272 valves, 50 drives, and uses 165 liters of oil. It also has 4,265 feet of electric cables. Fanny can travel around 1 mile per hour using its 140 horsepower engine. The beast also carries 80 liters of stage blood, which squirts out of its back when it is lanced with a spear during the play. Each of Fanny's legs has 7 degrees of motion, which means it can move laterally and walk around corners. This animatronic is equally amazing and terrifying.
Since we're talking about giant things, our next animatronic is one of the most unsettling because it triggers our uncanny valley response in a brutal way. Let me introduce you to the world's biggest animatronic baby.
If you've watched our videos for a while, you know we're huge fans of Studio ADI, or Amalgamated Dynamics. They are behind many incredible animatronics that we can find in films. We've covered them a few times before for animatronics like the Bedazzled Lava Demon, the Graboids in Tremors, and the Death Becomes Her Meryl Streep animatronic. But while many of the animatronics they've created are terrifying, this one takes the prize. Trust us when we say this is straight out of a nightmare. Take a look at the world's biggest baby. It's like something from a horror film. This baby was created for the Baby World Expo in 2010 in Shanghai, specifically for the Spanish Pavilion. The purpose of this gigantic animatronic was to create an unforgettable memory for the guests before leaving the expo. The director of communications, Pedro Molina, mentioned that their goal with this baby was not just to have people come and see it, but to observe the expressions on their faces and see them smile. The message conveyed is that the future is promising. Creating the baby was a challenge, as the team had to apply all their knowledge on a large scale. The animatronic went through the extensive process that we've discussed numerous times, including sculpture and mold creation. However, the most crucial aspect of this baby was the development of mechanisms for facial expressions. They achieved this by using gigantic servos. A massive latex mask was created for the baby's face, and each hair follicle, including the eyelashes, was individually implanted by hand. Finally, this baby made its debut, and it was a huge success. And while the message behind it was very positive, we find this baby to be nightmare fuel. This is likely due to the uncanny valley effect. Regardless of your opinion, this baby is undoubtedly a technological marvel.
In our next moment, we're moving from a giant baby to a horrifying parasitic baby. This is one of the most grotesque animatronics we'll see on this list, but it isn't ranked higher because it's not too menacing.
Kuato, Total Recall. Total Recall was both one of the final movies to heavily utilize miniature effects and one of the first to employ computer-generated imagery.
This was one of the last of the non-digitally composited movies, so we had to figure out ways of filming with cameras and actual miniatures almost all of the images. Except for the skeletons that appeared on the skeleton screens, everything that you see is something that has been created and photographed by camera.
But since CGI was then in its pixelated, embarrassingly fakey-looking infancy, the film relied heavily on miniatures, motion control, and matte paintings. And of course, animatronics. It is not surprising that Eric Brevig and Rob Boutine's team won the Special Achievement Academy Award, because the film is chock full of animatronics and impressive sequences and actions. But without a doubt, the most impressive and complex was Kuato. Kuato is the leader of the Martian rebels who is conjoined to his brother George. He is the product of a mutation, thanks to radiation. The most impressive thing about this animatronic is that a lot of people think the Kuato animatronic is attached to actor Marshall Bell's body. But in reality, both George and Kuato are a complex animatronic operated by a team of 15 puppeteers. This hyper-realistic animatronic looks amazing thanks to the team's intensive work, which gave it great detail, such as hair follicles and skin imperfections, in addition to having a special system that simulates George's breathing. Sadly, no one knows where this animatronic ended up, but back in 2018, a tribute sculpture of Kuato made by the artist Jeff Birch was on display in the Monsterpalooza Museum, but the actual animatronic is lost. This animatronic might be a technological marvel, but that doesn't mean it's not terrifying.
Open your mind. Open your mind.
This next animatronic marked a turning point in the creation of special effects and animatronics. This sequence is one of the most impactful in history, all done with animatronics.
Change Ahead, An American Werewolf in London. An American Werewolf in London is full of special and practical effects, thanks to Rick Baker's mastermind, which even led him to win an Oscar.
The winner is Rick Baker for An American Werewolf in London.
But undoubtedly, one of the effects that marked the decade of the 80s was the transformation from human to werewolf. For this transformation, 3 molds were created, one for each of the different stages of the transformation. Each mold was made with perfect detail, and it even had each hair inserted individually into the latex, so it looked more real. A special animatronic rig called Change Ahead was used to simulate the abrupt growth of the bones and face. To be able to do this, a new material had to be created. This material is called urethane, and it worked better because it stretched better than latex could. To be able to achieve this scene, the team worked for months. It was filmed in a matter of minutes, and it only lasted 5 seconds. The animatronics was part of Prop Store's collection for a long time, but nowadays it doesn't appear anymore on the page, so it was probably bought by a collector. This animatronic got Rick Baker an Oscar and helped bring to life one of the most iconic scenes in cinema.
The Resident Evil movies, in my opinion, are pretty bad, but one thing I really appreciate is their use of practical effects, like in the case of this next animatronic.
Liquor. Resident Evil movie. Resident Evil is one of the best horror video game franchises, and its popularity took it all the way to the big screen. In 1997, Constantine Films acquired the rights to be able to produce a Resident Evil film, but after several problems with the script, they decided that the film would not be 100% based on the events of the games, and that it would have to have a new story, and even new characters. Even though the film has lots of CGI effects, several practical effects were used, like makeup and of course animatronics, which were done by Animated Extras International. One of the animatronics that was developed was a liquor. To create this creepy creature, the team used the original design concepts, but then decided to modify them to make the creature bigger, scarier, and more aggressive. They also used a combination of several animals, like anacondas and lions, for the final design. The team created several molds and latex coverings for the creature's body and a huge and complex animatronic head, with many movements, all controlled by a special command. 2 puppeteers were needed to move the head, one to move the face, and the other to move the body. The Animated Extras team also created another less complex and much more resistant animatronic liquor, so they could use it to throw through doors and windows, and that way, they would not harm the main animatronic. For the final product, CGI was used to add effects to the creature's tongue, and there were also 3D models made for full body shots. While this film was not liked by Resident Evil fans, because it had practically nothing to do with the game, the film manages to have several sequels. Fortunately, a new reboot was announced, and apparently, this time, the story will be based on the source material, taking place during the events of Resident Evil 1 and 2.
We're diving into the depths of the sea to witness one of the most grotesque and terrifying props ever created, invoking our worst submechanophobia fears. This B-movie has gifted us with this nightmarish sight.
Two-Headed Shark Attack. The Asylum is infamous for its low-budget movies and shameless rip-offs, also known as mockbusters, like Transmorphers or The Avengers Grimm. They are also known for their notorious and ridiculous shark movies like Sharknado, and of course, Two-Headed Shark Attack. This ultra-low-budget and tongue-in-cheek film is filled with CGI shots that look like they came from a PS2 game. But the production also decided to use some practical effects, like this gigantic and terrifying two-headed shark prop. Honestly, we can't deny that seeing it in the water is truly terrifying. The shark was used in some scenes where the actors interact closely with it.
As an animatronic myself, I consider this creature to be the coolest animatronic ever made. The concept and bringing such a beast to the big screen make this animatronic one of the most terrifying on our list. We're talking about Kothoga!
Picture this. You're working on a film set and your job is to create a terrifying, never-before-seen creature to keep audiences on the edge of their seats. But there's a catch. The creature has to be played by a human actor, hidden inside a bulky, complicated suit. So, how do you make it work? That was the challenge faced by Stan Winston Studios when they created the animatronic creature Kothoga for the film The Relic. The Relic is a 1997 film that tells the story of a detective and a biologist who tried to defeat a lizard-like monster that is on a killing spree in the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago. Based on a sketchy description from the original novel, lead concept artist Mark Crash McCreary created a unique design featuring a spider-like head and a 15-foot-long body, part lion, part alligator, and part horse. But turning that design into a workable animatronic suit was no easy feat. Despite the challenges, the crew at Stan Winston Studio managed to create 3 Kothoga suits, including a stunt suit and 2 hero suits, all designed to hide the human performer inside. They even punched yak hair onto the creature's head, mandible, and back parts for added realism. But that was just the beginning. The fun part came when they began resting the animatronic systems inside the suit. These systems were designed to control the creature's neck, head, and facial movements. The mechanisms were built in aluminum to make the suit lighter for the performer, but still posed daily challenges on the set. Most of the mechanisms were radio-controlled, while the tail was manually driven by wire pulls. 3 puppeteers operated the animatronic neck and head, including the eyes and jaw. 2 performed the tail, and 2 controlled the moving claws on the arms. The performers had to be attached to harnesses from above to support them, and they trained for 3 months with an animal behaviorist to learn how to execute basic moves inside the suit. The end result was a truly terrifying creature that kept audiences on the edge of their seats.
We've finally reached our top 3, and this animatronic was designed specifically to make you feel terror and discomfort. Our next terrifying moment features the Dancer animatronic.
This animatronic is not creepy by accident like many animatronics can be. Instead, it was made intentionally creepy by its creators, Jordan Wolfson and Spectral Motion. This animatronic was part of an art installation created by Jordan Wolfson, who, with the help of the special effects studio Spectral Motion, created a 7-minute-long sequence in which this animatronic dances, lip syncs, and talks. The animatronic, or female figure as it is called, wears a witch mask and appears to be covered in dirt and scuffs. But that's not the creepy part of it. This animatronic has a built-in motion sensor to recognize when people enter or leave the room, allowing it to quietly observe them, and if you stand close to the robot, it looks deep into your eyes. Normally, animatronics are made so that they don't look directly at you, but this one was the opposite. It not only looked straight into your eyes, but it also followed your gaze if you moved. This made the animatronic terrifying and something out of a nightmare. It was exhibited at the David Zwirner Gallery in New York in March and April of 2014.
This music video is incredibly disturbing, and if you finish this segment without feeling a bit unsettled, I'll give you a burger. Let me know if you won your burger in the comments.
You are watching a Lou Reed music video, and you are thinking that something looks very odd. You see him singing when suddenly his hands reach out, violently tearing rubbery flesh and wires from Reed's face, revealing a mechanical exoskeleton underneath. This is the terrifying climax of the No Money Down music video. A moment that, even though was not even part of the original concept of the video, It would end up being one that defined this 1986 shocker and made the video iconic. People at the time found the scene too intense for MTV, but it catapulted the video to enduring cult status. Let's rewind the origin of this disturbing animatronic. You see, Lou Reed himself had no intention of appearing in the video for whatever reason. So directors Kevin Godley and Lowell Krim accepted the challenge of creating a Lou Reed video without Lou Reed, even if they found this idea insane. And to do it, they decided to create an unsettling animatronic Reed. A facial mold casting of Reed guided the robot's appearance, operated off-screen by a dedicated team. It could blink. It could move its mouth. It was alive in a disturbing way. Reed had to endure 15 minutes under plaster, breathing through a straw to create the uncanny valley effect that lives in a lot of people's nightmares. The result was something that both attracted and repulsed audiences, so much that MTV sort of banned the video and did not show it as much as other videos at the time. The idea to include the face-ripping moment was not even in the script until the very end, and it only added to the video's allure, showcasing an experimental and boundary-pushing approach to music video creation at that time. The reluctance of MTV to air the video did nothing but enhance its mystique. But while it was terrifying at this time, this animatronic's on-screen destruction created a moment in music video history that continues to haunt and fascinate.
I have no words to introduce the next segment. These are the most bizarre and disturbing animatronics I've ever seen. After watching the short film they appear in, I was left with a very unsettling feeling. That's why I've put them at number 1, for how deeply disturbed they left me.
Nathaniel Mellors is synonymous with creativity, but his creativity often takes him to incredibly dark and eerie places. His art installations are a true visual nightmare, characterized by absurd satire and amusing narratives. Mellors employs a range of techniques, from paint-spewing paintings to the use of animatronics. His exhibitions typically come with satirical comedy videos. The installation Hippie Dialects is accompanied by a video series called Our House, which features one of the most bizarre animatronic sculptures in the world. This includes a spotlighted animatronic sculpture with 2 robotic heads, cast from the face of one of the actors in the film. This lifelike 2-headed monster, one fleshy and one blue, connected by a swath of hair, delivers loop dialogue that's both humorous and mildly disturbing, reminiscent of the scripts of the episodic work. Another of his more unsettling works is a 3-headed animatronic sculpture. Mellors aimed to create a figure that induces fear and symbolizes the dominance of the main character. The artificial faces are controlled by servos, which are in turn managed by a computer. The unease you'll experience while watching the video, however, is entirely natural. These animatronic sculptures were unveiled at Art Basel Miami Beach 2009 and were sold for $75,000. Mellors' work is undeniably impressive, but equally chilling.
That's all for today. See you in the next video, where we will rank the best mazes of Halloween Horror Nights 2024.